Well, welcome back to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse, and we're going to take you to the second gore film. Right, Blood Feast might have been the first gore film, but The Flesh Eaters, 1964, in black and white, was the second gore film. And basically, the story was, and I probably talked about this before, so I'm being repetitious, a Nazi scientist played by Martin Kolchak is hiding out on an island, waiting for these creatures that have been scuttled in canisters off the coast of America during World War II to sort of show up where he is so he can basically capture these things and sell them to the highest bidder. This is a biological warfare deal where these creatures basically can eat flesh right down to the bone. And it opens up where these two people are fucking around on a boat, and the guy dives over, and all of a sudden the water turns a deep red. Well, it's black and white, so it turns a deep black. And the girl jumps overboard, and there's, the credits roll, The Flesh Eaters. And it's this pilot is chartered to take a drunken alcoholic film star and her secretary to, I believe it was Massachusetts or something like that, but they get caught in a hurricane and are forced to land on this island, and then the island is surrounded by these creatures. And of course, the mad scientist, Martin Kolchak, doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. His real name is Professor Bartell in the movie. And then this other guy washes up, this beatnik named Omar, and he's stuck there too. In the interim, a supply boat tries to get there. The supply boat gets splashed by a wave in the face, and this guy is eaten alive before our very eyes and drops to be a skeletal remains on the boat. Bartell is going to have to get rid of all these people, obviously, because they're a threat to what he wants to do. So he puts a couple of the flesh eaters in Omar's drink, which is a fizzy drink, and gives it to him. And there's a scene where basically his insides burst open and all this blood pours out, and then Omar is tied to a raft and set adrift in the sea because Bartell actually taped his death screams and put the tape recorder on the float. It has a very primitive, you can see the waves through the hole in the guy's chest, which would become more prominent in a gory Italian film, Cannibal Apocalypse, where Giovanni Ribisi gets his insides blown out in a saw, and you can see people running behind him. So that was the early version of that. Basically, when Bartell tried to electrocute the creature, he just stunned them, but then the creature morphs into this one-eyed thing. And previously, Bartell had basically thought he had killed one of the female cast who tried to seduce him, but she attacks him, and then it winds up that blood injected directly into the nucleus of this creature will cause it to die. So they, of course, have to do all this stuff, and they're going to make this big syringe and stick it in the eye of this big creature that's forming into the sea. Well, of course, Bartell has no intention of going back and standing trial for 2 murders, so he basically wants the pilot to lay down in the waters and attract the flesh eaters while, he does whatever he does. There's a fight that ensues. Bartell is tossed into the ocean, and in one of the most horrific scenes in the film, he is eaten before our very eyes. He basically is eaten down to nothing. We see a skeletal hand reach out to grab the dropped gun and blow his own head out. Really gory scene, and then they use this huge homemade syringe to kill the creature. Right after this film's release, and there was a William Castle type gimmick given out at the premiere with this packet of instant blood to save you from the flesh eaters. The film basically disappeared after its initial release. It got the full color treatment of Famous Monsters, which basically enraged a bunch of purists. Warnings were sent out to TV stations looking to acquire films for broadcast purposes, and there was a thing sent out about both The Flesh Eaters and Blood Feast to avoid them at all costs. Well, somebody did pick up The Flesh Eaters and edited the shit out of it, even to the point where cutting the part where Omar is screaming during his death scene. The whole TV went blank on that. For years, bootleg copies of these tapes were sold on VHS. Every tape was missing the payoff scenes until basically Dark Sky Releasing got a hold of it. But I think Fred Olin Ray had found a complete print before then. but got sideswiped because they filed on it quicker than he could. The film contains Nazi concentration camp footage of victims being dipped into pools of the flesh eaters by their hair and skeletons being pulled out. That was shot for the Southern Drive-In audiences by none other than Michael A. Rips, who also hit the makers of Night of the Living Dead with a cease and desist when they decided to retitle their film Night of the Flesh Eaters. So he was the one who shot that footage to, quote, make it more marketable to the Southern drive-ins, and then released it co-billed with 1960s Macumba Love. When you buy the Blu-ray, I believe Shout Factory put it out. I believe that there is the Nazi footage might be an extra, as it was on Dark Sky version. Also, I guess it made sense putting it in for whatever Rips was going to do, but in the overall scheme of things, whatever. The weird part is how now art imitates life, because this thing was shot around I think, Nantucket, Long Island, or something like that, Long Island Sound or whatever. And gee, what has been coming out of Long Island Sound lately? Flesh-eating bacteria in the shellfish and in the waters. So here's another question, 1964, how art is now imitating life, being all the weird fucking crap that's going on in the world today. Is The Flesh Eaters a good film? It's a great film. I love the film. The cinematography is great. Ridley Metziger, I believe, was the editor on that. So it's one of those little classics that really holds up, and finally got a decent release, first on DVD by Dark Sky, and now in the limited edition, limited to 1,500 copies, I believe, from Shout Factory. So if there's any left, I would advise you picking it up. So that's our film for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. Above all, stay safe, and we will catch you on the flip side.